We are live, December 18th, 2024. This is the IPS Evening DEPROGRAM. This was Auto Hoax or GTFO, Chief Crow, which is kind of our advice here. I mean, you can stick around, but if you don't auto hoax, you might find a lot of the things that we say to be possibly offensive, if not just ludicrous. But either way, that's fine. We're not here to convince the misinformed. We are the informed. And this is a place of high information, like we're informed non-believers. We know why we don't believe the things that we say aren't true. And I want to start off here. I had some notes I put down about the central premise of this channel, because there are some people who think that maybe we're going too far. Maybe we're going too far saying that everything is scripted. Well, first of all, nobody's saying everything. Nobody's using that generalization. I'm saying specific things. For example, PSYOPs. We can all agree PSYOPs are scripted events. They have scripts, they have directors, they have actors, etc. So one of the things I'm pointing out here is that if you look at 2020 and post 9/11 and then the space program at large, what do you see here? You see prefabricated scripts, historic narratives that are superimposed onto the news cycles. So the news with regards to PSYOPs is largely performative. So you can look at these as propaganda events. And so I think it's safe to say that with regard to these big transformative events that guide our collective shared worldview, and we do have one, we do have a shared fake history, or shared backdrop. With regard to that, I can say that with confidence that yes, our history is largely pre-scripted and performed in front of us. And if there is a flaw in that theory, please let me know. But it's the best explanation that we have so far for the purpose of fake news, which is the creation of fake history as authored and written by the powers that be, the dominant influencers, whoever controls the governments of the world has appropriated news and entertainment for one particular purpose. Go to ips.monster if you want links to all of the audio streams. You can go to ips.monster, and then, of course, if you want to listen on video, go to infiniteplane.live. So we're joined by P. Trippa, Benton, Diana South, Stuart McKenzie, Josh Libsuck, Frugal Snowbird, Ted Stryker, Ears Up, HLG, Diana South, Dwayne Obbit, and 144K says good night from Miami. Awesome. Thanks for joining. Lots of things to talk about tonight, kind of building off of what we talked about yesterday. And, flat earthers are being mocked quite a bit, as they always have been. But as of late, because of the 24-hour sun thing, in fact, Futurism put out an article today, flat earthers befuddled as they visit Antarctica and Earth appears to be round. But I want to point out that they're not the ones responsible for the drone hysteria, which has been debunked. But when I say it's been debunked, it hasn't caught up to everybody. So here's Russell Brand. Russell Brand, my jaw's on the floor. We're looking at a shimmering orb in the sky, and nobody has a clue as to what it is. ABC News 7. Like, this is something he posted last night. This was on the news a week ago. And it was ABC 7 mistaking Venus for some kind of a magical orb in the sky. And as you'll see, I have videos of people who have also recorded Venus, and one of them, convinced it was an orb, started talking to it. And it said something to her about Jesus. And I'm pretty sure she was talking to herself in a different voice. But let me go ahead and play this really quick, just so you know. But this has Russell Brand awestruck. So is he a fool, or is he catering to fools? That's my question. Is Russell Brand a fool? Or is he target marketing foolish people? So let me play this clip. This is woman zooms in on orb and speaks to it, and the orb responds with, quote, Jesus loves me.
Where am I? In between those two trees.
Okay, so if you're just listening, she's zooming in on Venus. Now it's out of focus, and so it looks like an out of focus star. And now here she's starting to talk to it.
Can you talk to me? Can you hear me? Jesus loves me.
Okay, so that statement was supposedly coming from the orb, which is actually Venus. And ABC News 7 is responsible for this. So she believes, or she wants you to believe, and 1.6 million people have watched this. I mean, think about the numbers. Like, this is how you know that skeptics, like, we don't make a dent on the world stage. This is more common than skepticism. This is why I say it's also important to quarantine our own parallel media apart from alternative media, because their way of consuming information is clearly flawed, and they're too easy it's really easy to convince them of almost anything, largely because they want to believe it. But again, she's talking to Venus.
Oh, you know Jesus. You know Jesus. Jesus is awesome, isn't he? Yes, he is.
Okay, this is insane. Let's see here. Somebody said another tweaker on the internet. Yeah. I mean, we got, I spell crackhead with a Q, not to offend regular crackheads. And the Q people are pretty bad. And this is pretty much in line with the Q level of gullibility. Pretty sad. There's a lot of overlap. But what do they really want? You see, what are they being targeted with? Why would someone like Russell Brand promote this stuff? What are they trying to do with this? And I think there's an agenda to it. So again, that was woman, zooms in on orb, speaks to it. It's like aliens have been deemed the new angel. It's like a lot of people have lost belief in their traditional religions, but they're happy to believe in this new version. Okay, let's see here. Lots of things to go through. MTG threatens to shoot down mystery drones herself. So not only do you have crazies on the right who were previously threatening meteorologists for supposedly creating hurricanes, now they're threatening to shoot drones. And this isn't just one example. This is from NJ.com. Military pilot injured during rash of laser pointings at planes in the New Jersey sky. So about a month ago, I saw this video that was mega viral of a guy with a laser pointer pointing it at UFOs in the sky, and they would blink at him. Well, it turns out those were gnats in front of his camera, and they were lit by the light on his camera, which made them appear to be like the stars, basically lights in the sky instead of gnats up close. And then when he shined the laser pointer on them, they did reflect that. They became brighter, which gave the appearance of interacting with UFOs. So since then, a lot of people have been pointing laser pens at airplanes because they think airplanes are drones. Well, at least people in New Jersey. Lean Dion says, why is she talking to it like a baby? Yeah, I thought that was weird. That was kind of weird. This is where it says Blair Witch type videos are becoming in vogue. Good, looking forward to it. So I got a comment from Gollum Speaks. It says, hey, is 100% fake, talking about the final experiment. One of Nemo's and Friends videos caught them with stage lighting based on seriously divergent shadows. And if you look at some of the wide-angle views, you can see a demarcation between the foreground and background, like on the old film studio background paintings. Clearly a green screen. It will be interesting to see the final exposure because Weiss is defending his pals, Jaren and Whitsitt. It's a laughably bad production. Cheers. A lot of people are questioning whether or not the Antarctic final experiment was real. And I've been asking the question in terms of, is it fakeable? I mean, you can fake a rover on Mars. You can fake a moon landing. Can you fake a base at the South Pole? Well, as far as you can fake anything if you can fake it in the movies, even more so true today than ever. And if you look at The Mandalorian and how they filmed that, the LED screens, some of these things are well within the realm of possibility. Did they fake this? Again, a lot of people are asking. Others are just trying to account for how to explain it away. Most people saying you can't discern the shape of the ground from what's in the sky. I hear a lot of explanations, people attempting to create models with multiple suns. But again, I'm still at the point where I don't have enough information to decide if they really went or was it staged. And I'm inclined to wait until I see all the evidence before I firmly opine on it. I do find it ludicrous to think that someone like McToon would secretly be a flat earther and that he would be a shape trader trying to hide this by pretending to be a globe believer. But then there's always the possibility that this is something entirely different. So we'll see. But if any part of it is staged, it's all staged. I think we can safely state this, that if any part of it's staged, it's all likely some part of an elaborate hoax. I mean, think about it. Who would be behind it if it was staged? The same people who staged the moon landing. So there we go. All right, let's continue. We are talking about a number of things today. I have a list here on the IPR points of interest. A military pilot injured from laser pointer. Stuck in fake space. So those 2 astronauts are still stuck in space.
2 Boeing Starliner astronauts aboard the International Space Station already knew they'd be spending Christmas in space.
Now, as Mark Strassman reports, NASA says their homecoming is delayed once again.
Not until late March. Not until late March. So a couple of things about this. One, here's the guy Butch, and look how smooth his forehead is. And, he's really happy. His eyes are kind of wide. And then later when he's talking on the camera live to the audience, his hair's sticking up and his eyes are squinty shut and he's got a pulsating vein on his forehead. I don't know why. It's almost like he's hanging upside down and gravity's doing a number on it. But regardless, they're stuck in space. And a lot of this ties into Boeing and the Boeing predictive programming leading up to this disastrous mission, which is ongoing. And they're stuck in space waiting for Elon Musk to save them. So just keeping up with this story. A couple other elements to it. It was the Calypso capsule, which ties into Odysseus in the Odyssey. He's stranded and imprisoned by Calypso, the nymph. So I'm thinking, okay, Space Odyssey, Odysseus, Calypso. Maybe there's some underlying story here where next we might expect them to have some kind of a run-in with this Poseidon. It's very foreboding if that's the template for this particular story. Lane Dion says, some of the background looks like the moonscape footage. Just looks like a drop-off. Yeah, exactly. Like rear screen projection. And I thought it was unusual that when Jaron stepped out, he said, hey, that mountain looks so close, I could almost touch it, LOL. So he's kind of laughing about the glacier that he could touch it. And he's like, but it's 5 miles away. So I'm thinking, are they looking at LED screens? And if you look at the background screens that they use in The Mandalorian, you can't tell where the ground ends and the background begins. It's seamless, mostly seamless. It can fool a camera, but if you were there in person, it might look a little fake. And it just seemed like a little bit of duper's delight. AJ206 says, Jaron should be embarrassed and ashamed of himself. Talk about bold and nervy. Between this staged nonsense and the fake ISS transits, give me a break. Well, I personally believe, and this is just my opinion, that he has been on NASA's payroll from the very beginning. I mean, why else would he fake ISS transits? There's no reason. HLG says, do they have enough hairspray to last until March? Right. Yeah, save some for Tom Cruise. He's going to go up there to film his movie pretty soon. And I'm really wondering, what are they going to do to Tom Cruise's hair? Yeah, you could see the pressure on his face. And myself and Secret Morpheus, we were in a debate about these astronauts and are they really in space? And we were debating about that. We called it vein gate because it was clearly a bulging vein in his forehead. And we had a lot of people saying, no, I don't see one. And we would do side by sides. And, it's like 2 + 2 is 5 to these people. They're like, no, that can't be a vein because that might imply that the TV is lying to me. And so instead of grasping the fact that they're being lied to, they just don't see it. It's cognitive dissonance at its finest, mind control. Okay, so let's take a look at this article from Futurism. Flat Earthers befuddled as they visit Antarctica and the Earth appears to be round. Now, we have 2 different takes on it. quote, I realize that I'll be called a shill for saying this, but I believed that there was no 24-hour sun. I honestly now believe there is one, says Jaron Campanella. But it goes on to say, one of the Voyagers was less convinced. Quote, I've seen a physical demonstration that could show this working, but I do think the data we're going to have from this trip will be helpful to clarify what's actually happening, said Austin Whitsitt. So kind of ambiguous. Austin Whitsitt gets it. Doesn't claim that a 24-hour sun invalidates the flat Earth. Now, again, I'm still questioning whether this event was real, but that's my right to question. I'm suspending judgment. Now, if you have more information to convince me, present it to me. I'm going to wait to offer my opinion until I've viewed all the footage, and we haven't seen it all yet. A drone intervened to stop Trump's assassination. Now, most of you here know that Trump's AR-15 ear piercing was fake and that he smeared ketchup on the side of his face. He had a ketchup packet below the 45, 47 on his hat, and he just did a thing. So we all know it's fake. However, a lot of people who believe it's real tend to add on to the story. And here's another development. According to this individual, Jordan Crowder, he believes that the drones we're seeing were actually present in Butler, and the drones are what caused the bullet to miss Trump. And that's because they were stopping a civil war.
Almost all of the sightings happen at basically when the sun goes down.
But he's talking about how the drones stopped the assassination attempt on Trump, and they're coming back because they're going to stop World War III. So, again, I'm just going to play
pointers into the little laser pointer to distract them, and then they start chasing the laser pointer and they stop fighting each other. That's what I see happening here. I think that somebody outside of this simulator, right, a higher dimensional being, is watching, guiding, monitoring. It's a free will simulator, so we can kind of do whatever we want in here to a certain extent. So kind of like if you had a couple cats fight. It's all.
Anyway, we're in a simulation, and the drones are here to save us. Good to know. Lane Dion said it didn't seem cold there. Yeah, I didn't see any penguins. Did anybody see any? Joined by Patricia Steer, Eric Stevens, Esteban. Thanks for joining. Unmitigated Mind says NASA loves bulging. Yeah, look, I'm just saying the guy was hanging upside down. It was pretty obvious. I wonder why the astronauts on ISS, the LARPers, it's like they wear these really tight pants and belts. It's like nothing's tugging on your pants. You don't need a belt in space. All right, let's see here what else we have. 2 charged in connection with Iran-backed drone strike that killed 3 troops. I just noted the concurrence of these drone strikes and then the drones over America stories. Probably not a coincidence. There's a rumor going around that the ISS is likely suffering from some kind of a leak, and they're going to spiral and crash. And so I have something here about this, and apparently this is from 4chan, but whatever. ISS going down, it's not a drill. Posting this before the higher-ups lock everything down. It's going to go sideways with the ISS. We got a briefing this morning. Major structural crack detected. Not some hairline. We're talking catastrophic failure levels. They're scrambling, but it's too late. They tried to patch it up months ago, but it's worse than they thought. The chain reaction started last night, and this was on the 16th. No official words yet, but deorbit is happening uncontrolled. NASA and Roscosmos are freaking out. They're going to spin it like they planned this, but I'm telling you now, this is an emergency. 5 kilometers per month is the current deorbit rate. So the story now is that there's some kind of a leak on the cosmonaut side, and this necessitates a hatch close between the 2 sides in case something bad happens to them. And this perfectly aligns with the movie ISS that came out last January 19th, in which Russia and America had to fight over who was going to control the space station because down on Earth they were busy nuking each other. So the separation of the 2 sides happened in the movie. So this is consistent with the predictive programming. It doesn't surprise me that I see this as a rumor being spread right now. And there's rumors that it was a sabotage. You had this Russians blamed astronaut Serena Chancellor, claiming she wanted to be sent home early. And so she freaked out and she drilled a hole into the ISS. So I remember hearing this story, and they covered it up. There was some dispute as to whether or not this is true. They also said that they plugged the hole with their pinky before they found something else to put in there. Oh yeah, let me open up my phones. Phones are open, 505-510-4226. Salty Siren says, it won't matter what anyone truly thinks. The premise is already set beforehand. If there's a 24-hour sun, the Earth is a globe, more of this or that, signed, sealed, delivered, psyop. Yeah, I think it was always a false dichotomy, the debate itself, flat versus round, because to me, it's an incomplete and intellectually dishonest debate if you're not including special effects. Psyops, movie magic, propaganda. And if you don't think there's a propaganda purpose to the space program, you're not looking at it correctly. I mean, what's the whole narrative behind the moon landing? Winning the space race, beating the Russians, who had already kicked it off with Sputnik. But even more, the idea that they faked the moon landing has been justified by they had to fake it to beat the Russians, to have capitalism dominate communism, and capitalism, America got there first. So there's a propaganda move here. But it was never America beating the Russians. It was the space program getting all of mankind caught up in its own narratives. And the debate on size and shape and all this stuff, I mean, this is, to me, missing the entire point. CG Eclipse says, we got to get Math Powerland to Antarctica to keep going south to see if it comes out the other side. It's the only way. Yeah, I think he's selling Flat Earth right now. Like, literally, he's selling mud. It's a power clay. Look him up. He's selling clay. Apparently, it has some kind of skin rejuvenating properties. You can brush your teeth with it, clean your hair with it. All kinds of mud, very fine mud, which he sells by the bag. So he's actually found a way to sell the flat Earth quite literally. Ted Stryker says, any footage of the pinky hole? I haven't seen any pictures of the crack. It's all just mostly rumor. And a literalist said America did fool the Russians with the moon landing. Well, the thing is, the Russian and the Americans are both part of the space program together. So we have to remember that they're colluding against the masses. It's like with anything that's deep faked on this level. It should give you an idea of just how scripted everything is. And I don't think it's an exaggeration or hyperbole or even a stretch to say things are scripted on this level. If you can agree that any one of the major events we talk about was entirely faked, whether it's the moon landing, the 2020 stuff, post 9/11 itself, if you can accept that premise, then you're already agreeing that they're writing out the news in huge blocks years in advance. They already knew, okay, after we fake terror attack, we're going to go ahead and have the war on terror narrative for this long, and it's going to go down like this. Like, these things are written in advance. Fake news does become fake history. Napoleon said, history is lies agreed upon. I 100% agree with that. Okay, yeah, phones are open. I don't know why it wasn't answering, but if you want to try calling one more time, it's 505-510-4226. And look, even if I end up convinced 24-hour sun, we're on a spinning ball, I think it's cool. I mean, I do think outer space is neat. I like science fiction. However, if that were real, it doesn't make any of the space fakery real. It doesn't make the ISS real. It doesn't make Apollo 11 real. All these things are still fake. The people who go with the default belief and never even question the globe are clueless as to the extent of media fakery and how significant it is in shaping our collective and individual worldviews. But collectively, we have been put into a false paradigm. Stuart McKenzie says, anyone see Powerland's breakdown of Jake the A's live stream? No, I actually didn't know he was still live streaming. So if you could let me know or send me a link, I'll check it out. I know those two used to be close friends. It'd be nice to see some kind of a reunion here. You know, where are they now? All right, let's continue here. So ISS is going to fall. So we have a new shooter to talk about. We kind of got into this one. She's some kind of a radical MAGA feminist Nazi, kind of a contradiction. But I noted this at the very beginning because I talk about how all these shooters exist in the same fictional universe. Note her shirt, KMFDM. favored band among school shooters everywhere. And here is Eric Harris or Dylan Klebold. It's one of the two. Same shirt. They do these things all the time. They connect all these shooters. A lot of them have bowl cuts. But they create these archetypes. These are what I call hyperstitions. And they all fit certain patterns. But they do these callbacks. Oftentimes their manifestos will reach back through time and reference other shooters like Audrey Hale. Audrey Hale's got to be one of my favorite fake shooters. And in her manifesto, she referenced Littleton. That whole thing tied into Stranger Things. See, I like Stranger Things, and the Audrey Hale shooting and the Robert Crimo shooting of 7/4/2022 were both templated off of Stranger Things characters. Totally fake events. Okay, I have some comments to go over here. So if you're leaving me comments on YouTube videos, I do get to them, and I'm doing my best to do some response videos to the comments. Skeptic9368 says, we have been prepped for a fake alien invasion for 75 years. It's another staged event. The mainstream will properly traumatize the sheep. 75 years. I mean, think War of the Worlds. And how the people with the drone thing, this drone situation is still being talked about. Fox News, they're all hyping it up. The fact of it is, there were no drones. Mick West was just on CNN. Because he said that if you don't have date, time, location, and then metadata, you just have to start rejecting all these claims. So he's like a subject matter expert on this, but I entirely agree with him on this. Date, time, location should be the bare minimum, along with metadata. And I had to institute similar rules for anybody submitting to me any evidence of space stations, because too many people were submitting bad evidence. They were submitting airplanes. But they would say, well, I don't know. It could be an airplane, but it might be a spaceship. It's like, sorry, that's not good enough. If you can't provide more information, I'm going to reject it. But it keeps spreading. So here's an example. This is a claim that they are somehow connected to a search for nukes.
Online.
Do you have any idea what it could be? Or which side it could be, where it's coming from?
Yeah, I can tell you what it's not. We know for a fact it's not little green men. And more than likely, it's not a foreign adversary, because they would be able to figure out how to turn off the blinking lights.
Now, there's something that came up today, though. Let me pull this up. It has to do with psychosomatics, because if you believe everything and you react to everything, you're going to be overreacting in the long term. But listen to this. This is an example of fake news causing psychosomatic illness. And this may go a long way to explain a lot of things. So residents in Jersey claim they have become mysteriously ill after seeing drones in the sky. After witnessing or reading about the drones, they reveal how they started coughing and suffering from blocked or running nose, puffy and watery eyes. One woman in New Jersey said she became so sick she felt like she was coughing up a lung. And a second in New York City said her blocked sinuses were because of the drones over Staten Island. A Daily Mail heard from other New Jersey residents. One said they developed a stuffy nose and swollen, runny eyes after the drones flew over her home. So I don't think these people are lying, but I think this is a psychosomatic illness. And I think that this is likely possible with a lot of things that people just believe. It's just the power of belief. So that's why I say this is mind war inoculation when you adopt the disbelief by default. But I do think it not only frees up bandwidth, less things to care about. I mean, there's only so much time. You only have so many F's to give. But on top of that, think about the negative, the deleterious effects on your mental health if you just accept everything as true with all these sensationalists running around. So here's Trump saying that there is something going on with the drones.
Flying around New Jersey ports. It seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on for
Now, this has to be an engineered psyop. It's a mass panic, no evidence. Everything has been debunked, but people are still choosing to believe it. But on top of it, you have that Palantir ad for drones during the Navy game where Trump and J.D. Vance were in attendance with Daniel Penny. So it's kind of hard to just ignore this. And then you have the sum of all fears connection. The drones may be looking for a Ukrainian nuclear warhead. And this has been hyped up by Joe Rogan as well. So there's something going on here. There's definitely a reason why they are hyping it. But again, there weren't any drones. No evidence of drones. All right, moving on. Madison, Wisconsin school shooter here pictured with a Joker shirt. It's the Heath Ledger Joker. Why so serious? Just another common theme lately. And then here's a tattoo. These are popping up everywhere. And again, I maintain my position here that there are no pose on the left, that you don't need parodies of extremism on the left, because leftists believe it. They believe all this stuff, and they don't need to hire people to fake these extreme beliefs. So here you have leftists tattooing the CEO getting shot in the back by the assassin, Luigi here. And I think he's been charged with terrorism, by the way. And I notice a lot of lefties have a problem with this. They don't think it should be terrorism. They don't think CEOs deserve any kind of extra protection, or that this has, and it is terrorism. He's got a manifesto. It's a broader message. But this is, again, I just an indicator that you don't need people on the left to be paid to fake extreme things. This is just a normal person. And there's a lot of people doing this. This Luigi worship. Victims or actors. I'm glad to see auto-hoaxology, whatever people call it, this level of skepticism. I'm glad to see it spreading and more blogs coming out. So I call it the false flag fallacy. And this is Francis's Substack, Francis O'Neill. He called this one in this article, Victims or Actors, the Farce Flag. And what he does here is he breaks down the reason why the term false flag is a misnomer and why we shouldn't use it. And he describes here, one of the great achievements of 9/11 Truth was to raise awareness and understanding of the term false flag. Yet the notion of a completely faked event is outside of public consciousness, and we do not have a phrase for it in our lexicon. This is something that we talk about here. False flag was the go-to phrase, and I said we need to stop using that phrase because it associates what we're talking about with something that's real. That's something that's not entirely faked. So we started saying, well, hoax isn't good enough because hoax sort of suggests it's local, it's anomalous, it's not systemic. So media fakery, simulated news events, we have to be a lot more nuanced in how we describe these things. Anybody still saying false flag is 10 years behind. That they don't understand what's going on. They lack situational awareness. And if you can find me one single event that qualifies as a false flag, correct me, please. But nobody can because it hasn't been done. So I put this link on my minds.com, the farce flag, victims or actors. They're all actors. And this also goes for the shooters. There are no patsies, only actors. Luigi Mangione, that's a live action role player. I mean, that's what we're looking at here. That's how big the scope of this is. I was listening to one of John LeBon's new podcasts. It's really good. The clips, and I'll have a link to it here for you. I'm featured in some of these clips. And he had brought up this proposition that could it be the case that a lot of us who are calling things fake and rigged are really just being, I guess, demoralized so that we don't vote. And maybe voting really matters. And I have an answer to that. I would say voting doesn't matter because who are you voting for but crisis actors and scripted characters? And even if they're not entirely scripted, maybe there's some level of autonomy, I doubt it, but they participate in every fake event and they treat every previous fake event as real. So they don't deviate from the script. And my contention here again is that there is a prefabricated historical narrative that is superimposed over real life through news where certain events are performed. That's the nature of propaganda. It's to bend your worldview, the news benders. It exists. And we live against the backdrop of fake news, or rather a fake history. If you've been paying attention for 10 years, you have a record in your mind of 10 years of fakery that doesn't go into the history books. So what does that tell you? That you're not part of the class that writes the history. You don't have any input. And the fact that you point out fakery, eventually you're just going to get swept into the dustbin. And one of my contentions here is that this may be a benevolent dictatorship. It may be the case that Psy-War, that mind war, is actually merciful compared to the real thing, and that maybe they found a way to mitigate our worst impulses and get things out of us, get us to, I guess, not destroy ourselves. I don't know. I mean, it could be. It's being optimistic, like the movie The Village. It's utopian, this utopian idea. The idea that this group is now separated from the world outside with all its problems, but in order to maintain the cohesion of the group, they have to be brainwashed sufficiently. And it seems like the brainwashing process is complete and total. And is it a bad thing? I don't know. There are times where I question, whether or not it's intrinsically bad. All right, let's move on. Just going through my notes here. Stranded NASA astronauts get more bad news. This is posted by Violet. Everyone's living in some sort of controlled simulation. It's like 28 years later zombies. I can only take so much. Yeah, well, it's certainly true that the masses are misinformed. In fact, this thing came out today. I saw this. This is really an interesting term. It's called information disorder syndrome. So information disorder syndrome is a way that they're sort of pathologizing free thinking. So if you don't need any kind of filtering, if you can assess any information and then decide what's real for yourself, if you talk about a lot of things that may or may not be true, but you speculate, you may be unwittingly spreading mind viruses to people who don't have any discernment. And those of us who talk about things freely are going to be diagnosable as having information disorder syndrome. So information disorder syndrome, and this is from the National Library of Medicine, says many of us may be unknowingly suffering from information disorder syndrome. It's more prevalent due to the digitized world where information flows to every individual's phone and computer in no time. IDS is the sharing or developing of false information with or without the intent of harming. And these are categorized as mis, dis, and malinformation. So there are 3 grades of it. So the mild form is if you share misinformation without the intent to harm. So a lot of the people retweeting stories of drones, they're not trying to hurt anybody. So their information disinformation syndrome is grade 1. Now those who are sharing false information knowingly to make money, but not to hurt people, but just, grifting, people doing it for political purposes, people like Stu Peters, that would be grade 2. And that would be, misinformation. That would be IDS grade 2. But grade 3, this is where people do it with the intention of causing harm. Anyway, this is a disorder, information disorder syndrome, and its management. Distorting facts, manipulating information, sharing information without understanding the consequences, vilifying others' beliefs, running behind propaganda and fake news. This is all some kind of a disorder. First researched and published about the different types of information disorders, and they've categorized 3 forms of it. And again, dis, mis, and malinformation. This is rather, well, I think it's expected. It's somewhat troubling, though. But the idea here is that they have correlated the spread of misinformation with spreading literal deadly disease. So mind viruses. It even says here, for instance, misinformation on COVID includes a long list such as, and it has this thing, I can't even say these things because they'll censor me. but it describes how that could be interpreted as actual malinformation because it could kill people. They may even say the drone sightings might constitute some kind of malinformation since people are shining lasers at airplanes. Ted Stryker says, Tim, if you could meet the powers that be or newsbenders, what would you ask them? That's a good question, but I would say that broadly we're all in the same box, the programmed. Nobody's unprogrammed, but you can deprogram. And you can't do that until you let go of the mainstream media premise. So truthers haven't even done that. The deprogrammed would only consist of media skeptics, and there aren't many of us. But the programmers are easily 95% programmed. There's no reason to think that the newsbenders are somehow enlightened about the big picture. I think it's highly compartmentalized by design for its own integrity. So I wouldn't expect anything. And I don't think you can reduce it to any group, any ethnic group. I don't think you can reduce it to any of these red herrings that people chase around. Another point about it, I suppose, is the people who are running the show didn't build it. And I actually think it's a continuation, a new iteration of religion itself. That mainstream media has supplanted religion. And that's why so much of it is a replacement for older myths, older superstitions. For example, aliens. Anybody willing to entertain the belief in aliens because they see drones likely doesn't believe in angels. Unless they're right-wing, where right-wingers, it's kind of weird. Lefties are more likely to believe in aliens and worship them. Right-wingers will likely view aliens as a deception, Project Bluebeam, if not demons. So you have these two different takes. But the right-wingers still cling to traditional beliefs in angels. But the progressive utopians are all about the aliens. It's not a coincidence that their opinions are also true with regard to illegal aliens, where progressive utopians are all about open borders, and the traditional religious types who believe in angels and stuff are still attached to the idea of borders. And the xenophobia is inculcated into the right at a very deep level. So illegal aliens and extraterrestrials are similarly viewed by each side on the perfectly bifurcated political spectrum. Okay, let's continue. So what's the cure for information disorder syndrome? Good question. It's kind of a unsolvable problem because the default position is misinformed. You have to remember that the dominant paradigm is built on misinformation. The best you can become is an informed non-believer, because just because you can reject some mainstream premise everyone accepts because you have information doesn't mean you have something to replace it. So you can only replace it not with just mere agnosticism and refusing to believe, but you have to have an informed opinion, informed disbelief. Informed disbelief weighs much more than low information belief. Now, I don't know what this means, but I'm being followed by Stale Irina, who is someone who works at Tesla, Neuralink, SpaceX. Here she is pictured with Elon Musk. Occasionally, I get these SpaceX people who just start following me, and they're always really close to Musk. There's another guy who is the head of Starlink who started following me one day after I called out Mousegate. I don't know why, but just pointing it out, somebody is following me. Maybe I tweeted something interesting. Okay, let's continue here. Gonna go through my Twitter feed. So there are a lot of people who are questioning whether or not this 24-hour sun thing is real. My take on it, again, is I think you should wait until we get everything out. Wait until they published everything before you make a final say. You have to reserve the right to suspend judgment, reserve the right to be a disbeliever. And if somebody says, no, you don't have that right, it's like, oh, you mean that a compulsively lying institution needs to be given the benefit of the doubt? No, thanks. I'll wait. Lean Dion says, Trump and Netanyahu have been communicating with the Galactic Federation, according to a former Israeli space chief, aired on MSM. I heard about that. And I'm wondering, maybe this drone psyop thing is out there because they are preparing some kind of alien thing. And they need to make sure that it's going to go down. And I've said this many times. I've said, no matter how terrible the special effects, when, not if, when they pull off the fake alien invasion, it's going to happen. Doesn't matter how many of us know it's fake, the masses are going to go with it because they want to believe it. And you have to think about the numbers. Like, how outnumbered are we? And all they need is 90%. I think they said in some study, 8% of the population figured out the moon landing's fake. So 92% makes it real. And if they can convince 92% that we're being invaded by aliens, it's real. Laser says, we'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. William Casey, 1981. Mission accomplished. And the mission was likely accomplished probably 30 years before that. Clockwork 113 says, my in-flight Wi-Fi is powered by Starlink, apparently. The question is, to me, is Starlink an orbiting satellite system, or is it a stratospheric balloon? Is it Loon X? Everything Starlink is capable of was already being performed by Loon X. Loon X only went out of business because they weren't making enough money, or they decided to maintain, or perhaps to reinforce the orbit story. I don't know, I'm thinking it's Loon X, which doesn't mean orbiting balloons. Like, you wouldn't see, like some people say that they've seen the balloons. It's like, no, you wouldn't see the balloons moving. These are stationary. But if you look up Loon X, I would suggest that that could be an easy explanation. I mean, the whole premise here of faking space from the very get-go is it's a conspiracy. So if there's anything here that you're experiencing on the user end that reinforces fake space, you have to assume there's some kind of built-in deception. And also, it's a house of cards, this whole thing. You look back to Apollo 11, rear screen projection, all that nonsense. If that has been falsified, then everything that follows has to be looked at as fake. Just because their special effects are gradually improving doesn't mean that they get a pass for all of their past terrible effects. Okay, I'm going through some comments. Truth Seeker says, something about the way, oh, this is talking about the 24/7 thing. Edit, I can't trust anything I don't see with my own eyes. Does this mean that everyone's going to have to go to Antarctica? So there are people who are showing these videos. I think there's a pretty good one I have here marked off where they're examining the shadows on the ground and asking, are these consistent with the sun? Are we looking at some kind of studio lighting? And some of these have been convincingly debunked. Maybe it's a camera case. Others suggest backlighting from a studio. So there are people looking at this. I don't auto-believe. I don't believe everything I see. Obviously, everything has to go through some level of scrutiny. So Canary in the Coal Mine posted this. So he suggests here that it's a chroma blue screen. He says they're using chroma key. The final non-experiment with these goobers are in a studio. And he's just demonstrating here in this video how the shadows seem to be changing angles too rapidly. And I don't know. This is going to have to be looked at. But if you do look here, you see McToon walking. And the shadow is pointed to the right. Now it's pointed to the left. Is that consistent with what you would expect from a sun 93 million miles away? Well, I would have to see it replicated. I'd have to see it replicated. I'll play a short clip. But this is...
Get dominated, Glyphs.
Anyway, I don't know. I'm not too sure. But either way, it's healthy skepticism, in my opinion. Appreciate that, Rogue. Another shop sale. I think I have a couple more copies of Autohoaxology 101. I shipped one out today. Salty Siren says, in 75 years, they'll be like, mass psychosis mind virus caused the entire population to think they were being invaded by aliens. Yeah, this drone panic is one for the history books. It's going to be studied. It needs to be studied. And you have these big social media influencers like, let me pull that one up again. Russell Brand, who's looking at a long debunked video of Venus. And he's suggesting that this is something powerful that we should all be looking at and talking about. It's like, no, this has been utterly debunked. Here's another take. This is another story, because somebody had mentioned this to me before, and I didn't talk about it, but the Pope. Somewhere, I thought it was Q nonsense. They said, the Pope is opening 5 portals on Christmas. Unprecedented. Pope to open 5 sacred portals on Christmas. Pope and Vatican to open spiritual portals and holy doors on Christmas. So there you have the Pope opening portals. Now, this person claims that the orbs that are angels, and again, we know here the orbs are Venus, the orbs that are angels are here in order to, as she says, do battle with what the Pope is about to release. So basically, she says, they lost the election and they lost control. So the Pope has to open Lucifer's tomb, and things are going to come out, and the orbs are the angels who are going to fight back against those things that the Pope is releasing from the portals on Christmas.
They're angels. They are literally what biblical angels would look like. This thing, when you see it reacting, it's reacting because this woman said, Jesus loves me. Look how happy. The angel starts like dancing. She said, God is good, Jesus loves me, and look at how it reacts. I also have a photo of one of these things that I saw years ago. And in one of my videos, I said,
Now, it's not dancing. The camera is shaky. But she says they've always been here, and our eyes are just now opening to it. And then she also maintains here that these are coming to save us from whatever the Pope is about to release.
Don't fall for the fear-mongering distractions, please. TikTok, this is my opinion, okay?
All right. Got some TikTok wisdom there. Someone asked the question here, what's the end game in the fake alien invasion? Good question, because it's not going to be a unifier. The right-wingers are going to shoot the aliens. So what's the agenda? Sometimes I wonder if perhaps they're not really going to do aliens, but that rather it's just some sort of a way to get us to confront the alien, the others, and to eventually accept the dissolution of all borders. Mass illegal alien invasion. Now, that could be the agenda here. And they're called the Greys. And you think gray, the reconciliation of the duality, the black and the white, the Hegelian dialectic, the eventual merging of everything into gray. So it could just be kind of a metaphor, but they may do it anyway. I don't know. I mean, is it fakeable? Yes. Sadly, it's believable to too many people. And I guess believability is the limiting factor. Whatever the masses will believe, they will be likely subject to. Leonard says 5 portals to Lucifer. Interesting. Oh yeah, I didn't finish reading those headlines. Fact check. Pope Francis is not opening 5 sacred portals. So apparently it's not going to happen. Rating false. He's only opening 1 portal. The other ones will be opened over the following days. And these are holy doors. And this has been performed since 1423. Okay, so it is true. But they're going to be opened over a period of days. And I guess when these portals open, demons are going to come out, and then the orbs are going to save us. So don't fall for the negativity here. The orbs are on their way. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up, caller?
Hey, Tim, this is Pete Trippa. How are you?
Very good. Are you concerned about the portals being opened by the Pope?
No, but I am highly interested in anything going on over there in Rome. Yeah, a lot of the words they use. Actually, are the 5 portals, is that within is at the Vatican, just because there's very special doors that they open for Jubilee. I actually went to the United States Jubilee back in the day when I was more involved with the Catholic Church. But
yes, that's what it is.
Not so much anymore. Not so much anymore. But
that is what it is. Holy Doors, Holy Doors Jubilee. That is what he's doing.
That's right.
And he's opening 5, one on Christmas, and then
I've seen them too.
Okay. So it is a thing.
They're actually giant doors. So by the way, that's another level of fringe. Is there's mud flood versus giants. Back in the day kind of thing. I love all the other fringe topics, and the design of the Vatican, just the story of the way the building was designed, giving it like a second, third read through, especially after being, introduced to, let's say, flat Earth, theory. It's kind of interesting how they're celebrating. I've called in frequently about, let's say, like anniversaries and timing, and how there's, to me, in some ways it's arbitrary, but they do define, these anniversaries as special. So I think, it's, obviously it's part of a ritual, but being, the start of 2025, I think is, it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of things to consider for 2025. I think, I didn't really call in on time, but you were talking about drones, and I think I can wrap it up and tie it up in a bow, and relate this to the drones, if I may, or is that?
Yeah, please. No, we're talking
offline.
We're still talking about drones. Drones is a huge story.
Okay.
Fox is promoting it. Trump's promoting it. So yeah.
Okay, I tend to believe that this is actually bigger than a lot of people are letting on. It's a fun meme. There's great videos. I see a lot of AI, like forger, kind of AI fake video kind of stuff that looks so believable, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. There's like some old people or super young people that are just falling for that, just like, whoa, holy shit. I think there's actually people that are scared. And then when they actually see planes for real or helicopters for real, that they're like, oh my God, that's now a drone. That's a like international drone. There's a couple onion layers to the propaganda here. There's certainly like the truthers that are thinking that this is, I guess, another country is invading us or something.
Well, did you
that old chestnut?
Did you hear what I was remarking on earlier? How the Daily Mail was reporting that many people are saying that the drones are causing them respiratory distress, sickness, puffy eyes.
I love it. Oh my gosh! See, that's the best part about taking, let's say, the white pill, right? There's a certain area of fringe which I think here at IPS we practice it the most, which is nothing is real, everything is fake. We have to understand that we're being guardrailed from here to Timbuktu, and to understand that, it just frees you up with so much stress. It's like amazing. I've actually had a couple conversations about it the last few weekends, where we don't have to worry about so much. And I think just making life decisions in general, where you move, how you invest your money, where you work, it kind of, you don't have to worry about where you do certain things, just because all that stuff doesn't matter. I don't know. I feel like just understanding this stuff has kind of made life just a little bit, less stressful, even though life can still be stressful.
The original skeptics, like Piro, they've said that if you were consistently suspending judgment and not believing things and getting emotionally entangled, you would reach a state of inner peace. And it even goes on to say that this is the optimal state to be in, even if you're entering into battle. In other words, it's never better to be freaking out about something you cannot control. It's always better to have that peace of mind and quiescence. And I stand by that.
Which is where, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm saying that's where I kind of stand with this whole thing with the news. It's like there's too much toxicity to absorb it all.
And where this is where I want to wrap it right back up to how important the drone memes or drone news is with respect to 2020, actually. I've called in before about ring theory and the ancient storytelling technique, which George Lucas employed for his Star Wars movies. And anyone here can look it up right now. Just Google or internet search ring theory versus George Lucas. It should be one of the first two things that pop up. And I think that between the Super Bowls from the last presidential election and this presidential election, who is facing who, there's the ring theory means like, there's kind of like a synonym, almost like a synonymous, rhyme to what's been happening. And I think, I want to say, I wasn't thinking it, but I think at first, the drones was kind of like a hiccup, but because it's been like weeks and it just had that same feel to how the coronavirus was kind of picking up in, let's say, December of 2019. Again, most of the stuff that we talk about is super skeptical, but I don't know. I don't know if anyone here. I'm not looking at the chat.
Okay, sort of
I
like
haven't been in the Gilded or Discord, but it gives that same vibe, and I think we have to treat it with a little bit more seriousness than just the light viewpoint of, oh yeah, this is propaganda. I think this is actually organized propaganda leading us to. I hate to say it, Tim, but all that propaganda from like the 2020s about Project Bluebeam. I don't know if this is the time to execute the alien invasion. Let's say the fake one, right? What better time than now when the AI is really, I've called in about this too, is probably 10 or 20 years far in advance of what we understand it to be, and we just kind of like know it, right? Like I can tell if something's AI, but what if what's being employed on us by the elites or whoever are using this vastly superior like artificial intelligence that can create way better, fake people faces, fake, because some of the videos are really convincing. I have to say, it's laughable. I'm like, all right, this is something that's taken from like a couple years ago, and I think people are just taking video footage and they're putting a lot on there for clicks, and whoever's the elites, they're like, okay, this is working. It's tsunamied into something bigger. Maybe we can monopolize this to do something. And I don't know, Tim. I don't know what people have been talking about.
I kind of get what you're saying.
Yeah.
In other words, like we've reached like the deep fake singularity. We reached this point of no return where everything is fakeable and everything is believable, and the limiting factor is credulity, and nobody has any kind of discernment. So I think we've reached a point where if they're going to bend our reality at like a sharp angle, major plot twist for all mankind, it could happen right now, and the drone thing could be part of the hysteric buildup. You could be right about this.
Think about this. Think about the dates. I'm trying not to treat this like as if it were softball. I think this is, it's December. This is how they kind of begin setting up something for the next year. It's almost like they're setting it up for like the teaser trailer for the big Netflix reveal in 2025. You have to set up the next 4 years for for the presidential stuff. They're setting up the next 5 years because I think there's some fringe stuff relating to 2030, And for me personally, I do believe that, I hope it's not this far along, but I think 2033 is when there's going to be really some, 33 being like the Masonic number of whatever. I don't know. You tell me, Tim. I don't know. Does any of that kind of ring true, or what do you think?
Well, you do have me thinking about how this has been kind of a buildup, and it must lead to a crescendo, this drone thing. And even though it's been roundly debunked, you now have it being promoted by Fox and by Trump with this other line.
Exactly.
And they're saying,
yes.
oh, the Democrats are hiding it. They're downplaying it. So now they're actually vindicating all the false sightings. So this is definitely stirring the pot. And then you have the Navy game where Trump was there. There's no way that commercial by Palantir was an accident.
Yes, and think about it in other ways too. And I want other listeners to call in too, and I want to hear other people, because I know some people just listen to the show, and then some people just are on the Discord, and some people are just on the Gilded, and then there's people that are all over the place and just, all on the show and everywhere. If you remember earlier this year, there's the boat crash right into the Maryland Bridge, and that was considered fake, and a lot of truthers were recognizing the fake propaganda around that. I clued in on it, and I was like, whoa, there's a ton of people that are like calling this fake, and that shocked me a little bit, because normally it's like the news kind of wins out, but like no, for whatever reason the president came out. Maybe I'm mixing up stories, but I vaguely remember there's a lot, and Trump's assassination, there was a lot of fake stuff. They're really taking like Biden as let's call him like a puppet, and saying, bring him out in front of the camera and saying, no, it's not fake. Almost like just kind of calming the waters, like, hey, no, kids, like, I know like the internet can be like censored and stuff, but like right now, like Elon isn't censoring it, so we have to actually tell you, like, that this stuff isn't fake. When really we know a lot of the news is fake. Like it's just so beyond me that I'm seeing how they're shaping it, and maybe I'm losing my mind just a little bit. But,
well, I think you're right. There is something here where
we start to see
they're having to acknowledge that a lot of people are calling things fake. The only problem with that is that those calling the stuff fake are still trapped within their alt media box, and so they can't put it in the right context for that fact to make any sense. They've been nullified as eyewitnesses.
Right.
They're no longer objective. That's why I say that we have to separate from Trutherville, because they're not objective witnesses. They might accurately say, that Trump assassination attempt was fake, but 90% of what they believe otherwise is within the controlled opposition paradigm. So it's like, sorry, it doesn't matter. You're in the sea of irrelevance.
And the Luigi, assassin, by the way, that's leading into all of this too. He's a really good actor, by the way. There's some like a story arc for all of 2024 where there are remember we did a lot of analysis in June, really heavily on Trump's attempted assassinations, plural, and how a lot of like the Netflix movies had a lot of like titles and storylines, story arcs that were relating to like assassins and stuff like that.
Yeah, or
shooters and stuff. I don't know if that's part of it,
Well, let me bring this up.
They're really setting the table for 2025.
Okay,
it's really interesting.
They have consistently overlapped the Batman fictional universe with all of the psyops around Trump's assassination attempts, where the Thomas Crooks from Butler, Pennsylvania, was correlated with the Riddler in multiple ways. The second guy, Ryan Routh, was associated with the Joker. So Joker, Riddler, you've had these repeated characters associated with these shooting attempts. So it turns out that this Luigi character who shoots a CEO, several interesting Trump correlations, but anyway, he shoots a CEO. He was compared to Dave Franco, who's trending because of it. Dave Franco portrayed the Riddler in this children's series, this cartoon. So there is this consistent overlapping with these different shooters, and it's putting them all into the position of righteous class warriors from the working class going after the power elite. And I think that this narrative is so powerful that when people saw this Luigi story, they immediately fell for it. And that's why they're tattooing the guy on their bodies, because they bought the story that this is the Joker, that this was an act of war against a corrupt elite. And even the Netflix show, The Madness, had a shooter taking out the CEO, and he also had a 3D printed gun, just like Luigi. So multiple overlaps. This is just a great example of how they use the entertainment to condition us to react in predictable ways to the future fake news events.
Yeah, Synchromorpheus has a really good thread on his analysis of Luigi and so forth with the Batman stuff, and it is really fascinating. I think it pulls from a lot of different pre-programmed movies and shows. I brought up the Mr. Robot was the first thing that came to my mind with the hood and the smiley face, almost like the Guy Fawkes mask. Like that one photo that floated around for a couple days of him just smiling.
Oh, interesting.
I think it was utilized in. Oh, you already know well, maybe there's just so much information rolling around, but the Mr. Robot also utilized the Guy Fawkes mask, sort of as like a clown mask, and the hoodie. And that show, if I never really made it past the middle of the second season, but the first season for sure is playing out with this Luigi Mangione. What in the sense that I don't know if the news is driving this, or the fake news or whatever is driving this, or it's actually organically happening. But the people, the truthers or whatever, are rallying behind him, as if he were like kind of like a hero. And it's synonymous to the first season of Mr. Robot. If anyone here is listening has watched that show, that guy of course it's different, but it's a hacker who hacked the big government. He hacked the big corporation.
Okay.
And was celebrated in secret, right? Like in secret, and there was like a secret party and whatever towards the end of the season and stuff. And
well, this is how they do it. This is template. What they do is they create characters that target markets will sympathize with. The guy with the hoodie represents the hood, the working class, the lower class. The Joker in the subway shooting the rich guys, kill the rich, and then they all put on the clown mask. Well, now you have people dressing up like Luigi with the hoodie, just like the Joker. So you have the same sympathies attached to a news character who's templated off these fake characters. This is the definition of predictive programming. And we watch people like, well, how did people go from just being normal to identifying with the cold-blooded murderer? Well, easy. They already identified with the Joker. They already bought that narrative. And it's partisan, it's target marketed, and the same people who are hit with the news story narratives are predictably, I guess, preconditioned to accept that narrative because they saw it in the movies and they love that character.
That you're absolutely right, and I disagree with you on a couple of like other things, like outside of this conversation with you on, but like this stuff, the pre-program, like this. If we just reference Mr. Robot, right, and the Joker or whatever, the Joker I think came out in 2020, I think, or 2019.
19.
But Mr. Robot, for sure, that was definitely either 2016 or 2014. I'd be convinced if you told me it was 2012. I'd believe you, but I think it was like that 10 years ago.
And let me add this too: Joker was based on Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, which inspired a presidential assassination. So you have an assassin attached to the Joker character already. So that's another basis for it. And the Hollywood Reporter compared Luigi to Travis Bickle from the Taxi Driver. So I'm finding that the media is actually reinforcing these archetypes that feed into these characters. So we're arriving at the same conclusions consistently.
Yeah, kind of like Rebels, and that, I think that's why people are taking to it. It's the organic way. like, the propaganda is pushing people to think. It's fascinating, Tim. I'm good. I don't have much more to say, but I do want to, it is just fascinating how organized it is.
Well, one more.
I appreciate it.
Let me get your comment on
I
one
do
thing.
appreciate it.
I like to hear what you think about this then, because when Luigi goes to jail, his supporters are like, okay, this is a righteous vigilante who is justified in doing this, and he's going to jail because our system is corrupt. At the same time, Daniel Penny is released. And the side that were in support of Luigi see Daniel Penny as a murderer who's granted release. So you have this double standard from the leftist perspective, and then Daniel Penny's hanging out with Trump and J.D. Vance. So you have this guy elevated and this guy demonized, but each one represents a vigilante acceptable to one of the political sides.
Okay, you got me in the weeds again, because the details of this Luigi story remind me also of 2020. By the way, I'm referring to Ring Theory again. This Luigi story is reminiscent to me of the George Floyd stuff, meaning, and I'll tell you why. What clued me in, this is the tell, is the camera angles. Now, I don't know everything, but I do know that there was I think there was one camera or something. Correct me if I'm wrong. You were probably way more into this than I am.
There
was one camera angle.
Yes, I know
and
the
I
angle.
I think they learned from the George Floyd, let's call it an event or show or whatever, because there was 2 camera angles. There was no more than 2. And I know that for certain because we talked about it ad infinitum on this show, and both angles were incorrect. They didn't match up. Okay, come on. It was as if they filmed from 2 different places, and they were telling us that that's the same event, but it wasn't. And if you really looked at both angles, it almost looked like, and Lynn Artell is really good at this too, because it looked like it was 2 different police officers, the Chauvin, whatever his name was. By the way, this is 2 completely opposite, and this is where Ring Theory comes in again. It's as if it's flipped. You are now on the side of the bad guy, right? Well, sorry, George. I'm envisioning. Well, hold on. I guess it depends on your perspective, right? But from the eyes of George Floyd back in 2020, you were supposed to be on his side, and he was killed, right? But now you're on the side of the kid who did the killing, and he's. Do you know what?
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because in 2020, it was the oppressor taking out the oppressed, and now it's the oppressed class
onto it,
hitting back at the oppressors.
I don't mean to speak over you. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that they reversed the role of oppressor versus oppressed, and this time it was the oppressed hitting back.
That's what I'm getting fired up, but I'm running out of steam because I have no more info to justify it. But I'll work on it. I'm going to keep plugging away. And I think there's something there. It's almost like there's a rhyme, and the middle of it was probably somewhere in 2021 or maybe 2022. I don't know where.
You're onto something.
The Ring.
I think you're onto something. And I'm not familiar with this Ring thing, but I'm looking into it because history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And if you look at Joker, it was the Joker fighting back against the oppressors, the rich, and the cops, and all his followers put on masks. Well, now you have a guy shooting a CEO. And all of these people who support him putting on the hoods. So, and then also the Luigi hats, which are green, like Joker hair.
Oh my gosh.
Joker hair.
How many, think about Wakanda, or not Wakanda, but think about all the idolization of George Floyd and the big funeral for him and all that stuff in 2020. It was big. It was really big. They really drove this home, the message home that he was being oppressed, and all the riots and all that stuff. I mean, I think this is a big setup for 2025. And think about what's coming next. I know we do our normal analysis of, December 21st, and then, the Dog Star, and then January 1st. And then there's a couple other events in January. But then once you hit the inauguration, that's the end of January. There's going to be some. You think Trump's inauguration is going to go by like smoothly? Maybe that's the ring theory. It's like 2020 was going to be bad. 2024 it's going to be good. I don't know like how the inaugurations go.
I don't know. I think you might be on. Look, the left has
yeah.
nothing to lose. And okay, here's the thing: the movie The Madness, the series The Madness, where the CEO gets shot. One of the other themes was after the shooting happens, there's this other character says, "This is the turning point. I'm ready to go." So it was like it was kicking off what would be more people doing the same type of action. That was one of the themes in The Madness. And so I don't think this story with Luigi's over yet. It's just like the shot heard around the world. And yeah, I think that also in the movie, they made the case that the CEO who was killed, which is obviously representing Musk, had not only financed right-wing Nazis on the internet, but also had invested in election interference. So the implication was that the election was stolen. And that was in The Madness. So, and it was Musk who would have been responsible for stealing it. So if you look at the role of Musk and Trump getting into office, you can kind of see here where The Madness may even be predicting maybe some kind of, I guess, response. Yeah, maybe some kind of January 6th type action.
Wow. Yeah. That would be interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think more about this. I think I've exhausted all information for today. I wanted to add some value to the conversation, and I hope I didn't digress too far down the rabbit hole. So thank you, Tim, and that's all. Thank
all right.
you.
Well, interesting call as always. Thank you for taking the time, and we'll see you in the comments. Thanks again, Pete Trippa.
Exactly. Thank you.
All right. Excellent call. Someone was just trying to call in. Yeah, just call right back. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, it's Leo Pirate.
Hey, what's up, Leo Pirate?
Yeah, so I just listened to Pete Trippa's call, and yeah, I agree with a lot of the points. But one thing I did want to bring up, I got a couple of things to talk about, is the timing of the final experiment. So I know a lot of people are looking, like, parsing the nitty-gritty details. Is it fake? How was it filmed? I'm confused about the timing. Like, it ran concurrently with the airplane drone psyop, where everyone thought drones were everywhere. And, you know, with these fake stories, you can milk as many different narratives as possible, right? So there's it's an inside job with drones. There's other people who think it's from Iran, like they're just psyoping us and stuff. And then there's a sensible position that it's just airplanes, right? But this ran concurrently with the final experiment. And I think my view of the final experiment with these drone ops is that you know, the idea that a current accepted cosmology that's solidified by all of them, by all those positions, right? No one's on it. The only people who are questioning whether or not the final experiment is real are people who have already made a decision on our current cosmology. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So in other words, if they're preemptively, like maybe they're trying to preemptively debunk any resistance to the alien invasion, so you got to shut up the flat earthers for once, because they're the only ones who are going to, as a demographic, uniformly call it fake. Everyone else wants to believe it's real. So it does seem interesting, the timing. Like, are they trying to open the Overton window a bit and shut down certain critics of the incoming PSYOP? Is that what you're kind of hinting at?
Yes, and the way they do that is by introducing controversy or debate within the realm of the assumed position that our current cosmology is true. So everyone's bickering within the box that, yes, our current NASAtology is real, right? In fact, I don't even think they're even that worried about people questioning NASA, as long as you still believe in our current, Copernicus's model going forward. As long as you still accept the current cosmology, they could really care less.
Yeah, great point. In fact, until the flat Earth topic blew up, it was almost standard to say, oh, NASA's lying because they're hiding their secret space program, because they found a moon base with aliens. And I used to follow these stories, like the black satellite, moon bases all these stories that come up that suggest that NASA's downplaying what they know. And it was never they're faking everything. So it's kind of interesting how, conspiracy theories that don't challenge the dominant paradigm are given free reign because they actually reinforce the propaganda.
And it's funny that you brought up Bart Sabrell, the guy who made A Funny Thing Happen on the Way to the Moon. He's definitely a limited hangout operator because, like, doesn't he push this idea that, like, NASA faked the moon landing because there's something more, right? So, like, it's no matter what, they always have a thing. Something I did want to mention, this is just a side little tidbit. There's a great book by a Seventh-day Adventist Christian that was written in the 1800s called Is the Bible from Heaven? Is the Earth a Globe? And that man, that Christian, his name is Alex Gleason. So if you've ever seen the Gleason map, that's actually from a Seventh-day Adventist Christian from the 1800s in Buffalo, New York. Not many people know that. Some of the largest collection of flat earthers in upstate New York were Seventh-day Adventists in the 1800s. Not many people are aware of that. That's just a little tidbit I want to throw out there. Now, the thing with Luigi that Pete Trippa brought up, I've been looking so deeply, and I think you remember this, about the gamer. I know this will sound like weird, but I'm big on the subconscious associations with these news stories and psyops. And the gamer connection to the future fake assassination of Trump is something I've really been looking at. So in Megalopolis, the kid who shoots Catalina Caesar in the right eye, before he does, it's very clearly emphasized that he's Spanish because Lawrence Fishburne's yelling at a guy who's speaking only in Spanish for their car to move. And this kid, he asks him, he shoots him in the eye. Later, when Shia LaBeouf goes to the neo-Nazi right-wing extremist character who organized the hit, he's angry at him. Behind, for a very short subliminal moment, you see behind the neo-Nazi guy with the black sun tattooed on his forehead are two children holding Nintendo Switches in hoodies. I posted that still in your chat before. Very odd, right? Now Luigi,
Yes.
what does his name make you think of? Luigi, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the go-to. And his character had been, like, on his social media, he had this Pokemon character with this green, like, hat thing. And the green hood, like Robin Hood, there is this consistent color association with him that also comports with Luigi. And then there's the Luigi ghost gun, the 3D printed gun, the 3D printed guns in the madness. So there's some overlaps with this Luigi game character as well. Just another example of how the predictive programming is in the movies, it's in the games, it's in the books, it's in the music.
Absolutely. And in that article I've written on my website, again, sorry to plug mindwar.page for everyone here, I have a really comprehensive breakdown about the character of Luigi Mangione, his archetype to the Riddler, and his connections to Luigi. But one of the most successful animated films of all time is the Super Mario Brothers movie from 2023. And a majority of the film, a key plot point, is rescuing Luigi, who's in jail most of the movie.
Oh, that's interesting.
He's in jail.
Okay. Because Luigi's one of the few of these shooter characters, these patsies, that isn't killed or suicided. So it's like, okay, we actually have someone who's going to be in jail, and he's already a folk hero. He's already a champion of the people. So that's kind of interesting in itself. Good connection.
Yeah, and the ghost gun, 3D printed, you already mentioned the madness. And for people who are probably just tuning in or watching this out of context, I know this will seem a little out there, but the metascripters, they really throw everything into a blender, right? They throw video games, Netflix TV shows, comic book stories and archetypes all into a blender to make it happen. But yeah, the 3D printed guns with the madness ran concurrently with the Luigi psyop. His 3D printed ghost gun with his name Luigi tied into Luigi's Mansion, Luigi Mangione. But the thing about the gamer, this is the thing. I just posted this in your chat. I just took a gander over at friend Nick Fuentes' Twitter, and he's raging at Trump. He's extremely upset at the cabinet picks. He's just going off saying, I was right. He got into another scuffle today. I haven't been following it. I don't care. But the thing is, what concerned me is he retweeted a fan-made meme from someone on December 11th with 7.5K retweets and saves that took interspliced footage of his latest show, which is on the Joker set, the one that where Arthur Fleck shoots Franklin in the face, Murray Franklin in the face. That's where Nick Fuentes' show is. It interspliced clips of his show with Taxi Driver and Joker 1. So Travis Bickle and Arthur Fleck from Joker 1. It's interspliced with his show. I posted it in your chat. I was like, what? And that was retweeted very recently, like just the last week, and it's on his X. So I'm like, that's a little concerning. You had mentioned the connection. Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. That's a good link there. And I'm sharing your website, by the way, mindwar.page. Anybody who creates a website or a blog from the Metascript breakdown perspective, I got to put you all on a list on ips.monster on the bottom, because we have to have our own parallel media. And this is some great research. I mean, foreshadowing, not prophecy. This is media breakdown from a very informed perspective. And I see a lot of useful links. So again, great site, mindwar.page.
Thanks, Tim. And yeah, and also I linked to you in there as well. So we should all, definitely all keep interconnected, because this parallel media is only going to continue to grow, and it needs to grow as things start to get only more ridiculous. Now, I'm going to sound a little bit like JL here, because he's really big into like the dates and breaking stuff down. But I found this. I may have mentioned it to you before, but I'll throw it out to the think tank or the people who are watching right now. The connection between Travis Bickle and John Hinckley Jr. on his assassination attempt on Reagan that's actually in the official narrative. You can go to the Wikipedia page for John Hinckley Jr., and it says he was inspired by Taxi Driver.
He dressed like Taxi Driver. He actually dressed like the movie character.
Right. And what I was interested in is I just looked it up. The release date of Taxi Driver and John Hinckley Jr.'s attack on Reagan. What was the difference of time? It turns out that is 1,887 days. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So I took that same number and then went the release date of Joker 1. The release date of Joker 1 plus 1,887 days comes to November 22nd, 2024, aka the 61st anniversary of John F. Kennedy. So what that makes me think is that whatever Joker will inspire, whatever this Joker character will inspire, it's going to inspire a JFK-like, but not a John Hinckley Jr., not an assassination attempt. It's going to be a fatal. It's like on the world stage, of course. I agree it'll be fake, but to everyone it'll be.
Now, these date things are significant, though. Do you know John Hinckley's birthday? Again, he shot Reagan, inspired by Travis Bickle, who was the inspiration for Joker. Do you know Hinckley's birthday? I
don't know his birthday.
JFK's birthday, May 29th.
Wow.
I mean, that's not a coincidence. This is part of their storytelling, where you do have these tells. And that's an interesting one. Yeah, the shooter of Reagan has JFK's birthday. It inspires the Joker. And then the Joker character, again, shoots the De Niro character. It's so interrelated. And it goes back decades. And this just reinforces how fake the Trump shooting was.
And, the off-world stage perspective allows you to have that view, because it sounds out of context if you're to clip our conversation. It seems kind of like crazy and out there until you realize that our papal Gregorian calendar system, our characters on the world stage, their birthdays don't need to actually be what's reported on their Wikipedia page or what's in the news. It could be all a movie. And when you consider a lot of these characters on the world stage as characters in a work of art, a giant elaborate show that's put on for everyone, you can start analyzing it for symbolism, for tells like that. And I think there's a functional purpose for it. It's not just artistry. No one's subconsciously thinking about the birth date of John Hinckley Jr. or the release date difference gap between Joker and JFK's assassination. These all happen on a subconscious level that doesn't actually ever reach up into the conscious mind. So that when they fake an event, it provides this further plausibility or credibility to an event that's presented to our conscious mind.
It also speaks to the long-term planning and how precise it is. And a lot of it's timed with astronomy, with astrological alignments that have specific meaning for the psyops. And there are some people who are overwhelmed when they're shown these patterns, and they say the only way this could happen is if there's a higher power and these people are born on these days. It's like, no, you're talking about prefabricated history and characters who have their entrance and exit points prefabricated. It's actually less complicated, and it's more along the lines of just general script writing. And of course, these are all details that go into these manufactured characters.
And you know what? I almost want to play the advocate of the people who are in the system, people who believe it. I try to think from their perspective, and guess what? Yeah, the stuff we're doing, the stuff we're analyzing, it sounds and looks crazy. Only if, and this is a big if, only if the events in question are actually real and organic. If the news events that are being reported truly are organic, chaotic, out of the blue, and they happen, yes, then what we're doing is actually insane. But because you can find so much evidence, provable facts that our media is lying to us, that these are staged events, no, it actually follows that these would be bundled in with that worldview.
Yes.
Because it's like, if they can.
Well, people don't know what media is. I mean, they think of news reportage as separate from the entertainment and separate from the political psyopera. But, I say forget about the military-industrial complex. Focus on the psyop entertainment complex. And there's something structural about media they miss. It's intrinsic, it's systemic, and that is the alignment between predictive programming and foreshadowing of future news events. That is systemic, it's programmed, it's consistent, and it's predictable. I am consistently pointing to movies that are number one that I'm going to watch with the presupposition that this movie will foreshadow what's going to happen in the news. So I watch The Madness for predictive programming. Next thing I know, CEO shooting happens, multiple connections. So there's no Netflix number one trending film that doesn't directly correlate to the fake news. So either we're examining prophetic media, divinely inspired prophecies being fulfilled, or it's foreshadowing and it's part of an integrated whole. And Occam's razor says, man programming man with subtle propaganda.
And that's why on my website I have the archives, so you can the infuriating enigma, which is the article I have on Luigi Mangione. You can look up. It was really published originally on December 9th, and way before we found out that James Franco's name was trending, I was saying this is very much a Riddler archetype. Then, all right, suddenly his name is trending in the news, James Franco. They say, oh, he looks so much like, Luigi Mangione looks so much like James Franco, and he played the Riddler in Young Justice. So it's like these subconscious associations, we can even call them out before they even are, presented to people.
Yeah, okay, this is a great example. I'm looking at the page right now. So before we knew that Dave Franco was in a Riddler role, we had already associated this character with the Riddler, with Joker. So we're doing this by character analysis and by looking at predictive programming as inseparable from fake news propaganda. And so this is just an example. Either you and I are psychic and all of us think tankers are prophets and we're in touch with something divine and beyond man's understanding, or we've really cracked the basic code here, that the only real conspiracy is that our worldview is entirely manufactured day by day.
Yeah, and I think when this a future Pete Tripp has been kind of trepidate. I am as well. I'm a little worried. I don't know what's coming exactly by the end of this year or the beginning of next year, but whatever it is, a lot of the stuff will have archives. Like you'll have past streams. I will have past chat messages to show, yeah, this didn't just happen out of the blue. It's like, we have been talking about this for a long time. How could we be so accurate months in advance talking about something that is ostensibly a surprise attack? It's because it's foreshadowing. It's like we're doing media analysis of a giant fictional story, and that is our entire news system, right? And the last thing, because I don't want to take up the rest of your show, last thing I want to say is from a Christian perspective, I've been looking at this false prophet guy. His name is Trey Smith. I posted one of his videos in your chat. He's pretty big. He has over 600,000 subscribers on YouTube. Some of his videos have millions of views. He made the Trump prophecy video. For years, by the way, he's been saying that Trump would have a second term. He would have the 2 terms. And this guy interviews false prophets around the world. Well, he doesn't call them false prophets. He thinks they're real, genuine Christians. He's like, look at this. He's like, yeah, Donald Trump's going to have 2 terms. But in his latest video, he talks to this one guy who had a vision, right, a vision, quotation marks, where he saw Donald Trump avenging what happened to JFK. And there's all these comparisons drawn between JFK and Donald Trump in this video I sent you. And I'm like, and isn't that a big Q pipe thing, right? That like, oh, JFK, the mythos, the mythology behind JFK and JFK Jr., like the Kennedy family, it's going to rise like a phoenix through Donald Trump.
That's the core. The core belief of Q is that the war in the deep state was being fought by Kennedy, and they took him out. And so Trump is working for the Kennedy bloodline. JFK Jr. is secretly Q, and he's using Trump as a proxy to wage this war to avenge JFK. And this was the cult that in 2021 on 11/22 were gathered at Dealey Plaza thinking JFK would come back. So no, JFK is intrinsic to the Q story. Some believe he is Q and that JFK Jr. is hanging out with him. Either way, yeah, the Kennedy association with Trump, it's there for a reason. And I think it's because they're building up for some kind of major head wound drama. Maybe it's not literally Kennedy, but they're going to JFK Trump.
Yeah, and the big thing is with a lot of predictive programming, it doesn't literally occur even in the fiction, on the news fiction. It has like these subconscious associations. So like the Phoenix imagery or like the resurrection, I'm not even sure if Trump will literally be resurrected from it or if he will like live on through J.D. Vance or something. Because I don't know if you know, in Rome, so after Julius Caesar was assassinated, Augustus Caesar took on, like that's where the Caesars came from, by carrying on the legacy of Julius Caesar. So he kind of lived on through the following emperors.
Ooh, okay,
so
okay.
So I don't want to necessarily say that Trump's going to literally be raised from the dead. I thought that was something, but I'm like, that's too simple. Right? I think it's going to be, I don't know, maybe. We'll see. This is all speculation at this point, you know?
No, we'll see, but no, you're right with something here. It's all about the building the story. And so, like, this is a great example, like how Luigi was pre-sold to his fans through the Joker and those who identified with the Joker's struggle. Well, those who have been associating Trump with JFK, the Q people, for example, the MAGAs, anything with Trump, he has become a mythical character. He is a combination of JFK and George Washington. So they do have these associations built, and it's by design. It's almost like I think you might be onto something here, especially with Megalopolis, where they definitely made the association of the Trump character and they called him Caesar. So there is something to that. And then Trump was Caesar in the park, Shakespeare in the Park, Julius Caesar, where he was, the Trump character was killed on stage back in like 2017. And that has a lot of connections. Caesar's birthday, 7/13. Trump had his ear wound, 7/13. So yeah, you might be right on target with that assessment.
Yeah, and there was a lot of memes because, yeah, of course, it's in the world stage aspect in the news, like the 7/13 event and the Shakespeare in Central Park. Even in the memes during 2016, the people would edit from, what was that game called? Warhammer, right? They called him God Emperor Trump, and they would have all these images of him. It was also from Metal Gear Solid 5, was it the Phantom Pain? People would, Venom Snake from that game, he has an eye patch, and people would often, tons of memes have Trump with an eye patch, mirroring Venom Snake from Metal Gear Solid 5. So yeah, truly these memes are saturated in every form of media, in fiction, in the news, in anonymous image boards and social media memes. And yeah, there's just what it is I think you and I had called this out. Even before the election, we're like, there's no way Trump's leaving. There's just too much predictive programming and memes surrounding him for him to just suddenly leave the world stage and go, oh, I lost the election. All right, bye, guys.
Yeah, they haven't finished the story.
No.
They have not finished the story. He's been painted onto the zeitgeist, and his role hasn't finished playing itself out. I was like, no, they can't just leave him without the rest of this predictive programming culminating in something. And that's what we're waiting for. And he's just now entering his Biff Tannen stage. And that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. I think 2025 is going to be very, very interesting.
And I think what's going to happen is the twin. I think someone in the chat had mentioned that Trump is, his zodiac sign is he's a Gemini. So he's like a twin. I think his first term, he was portrayed as the racist evil, the bad side of Trump, right? Like the evil side. What we will see moving forward, if you don't have discernment, is I think the same people, much like in Megalopolis with Julia, who didn't like Caesar Catalina at first and then fell in love with him later on, and she was carrying Siddhartha in her jacket, which is a story about a main character who leaves Kamala, right? I think the same people who are just so upset at Trump, hate him right now, they're slowly going to turn to him, and that he might actually have like a redemption arc built into this. I'm sure everyone in this audience here is not that foolish to fall for it, but you never know, right? Wasn't he earlier, with like a year and a half ago, he had a mugshot photo, and now he's Person of the Year. Truly, we live in a narcissistic media society where they can just change the truth, what is good, what is evil, at a drop of a hat at any given moment.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's like the same people who are anti-gun. Whenever there's a mass shooting, they're always anti-gun. Now they're suddenly like, oh, it's justifiable murder if you're killing a CEO. These double standards are a sign of, I think, of a deeply fractured society. There's no coherence. It's definitely, I mean, that's why I brought up Daniel Penny being released the same time Luigi goes in. That's to emphasize how split we are and how one side's hero, one side's vigilante is the other side's villain. And this is a consistent pattern that we see throughout it.
And that's why I think, the off-world stage people are the hardest to control, because we're, right, where our buttons have like a lock on them. We're like, we're not going to be pushed by these news stories. We're going to step back and analyze what kind of narratives, what kind of groups will cluster around them, how will they be played against each other. So anyway, awesome work, great parallel media stuff. Love this. It was a pleasure to call in, Tim.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. And again, I'll have to do something about putting a listing of all the relevant blogs and websites. JLB has a new Patreon, but I'm going to put a list and then I'm going to drop it on the main site so that we can start networking and getting more people to subscribe to each other's blogs and content. So thanks for the call. Thanks for the information as always.
For sure. Bye.
All right. Phone is open. I think we had another caller trying to get through. Also, thanks to Osher, who brought 5 Blue Wrench Lodge memberships here. So Sit Down, Space Chimps, IFEP A73, Sync Lloyd, It's Snoopy have all received the coveted Blue Wrench. Lane Dion says, Rogan said Trump has changed post-shooting. He's calmer and a better temperament, especially since news interviews. Michelle Castor says, Caesar was an ape in Planet of the Apes, circling back to the monkey stuff. Ooh, interesting. Now let's see here. Okay, so Megalopolis is something we've talked about quite a lot. One thing to point out about that is the self-conscious references to predictive programming by Francis Ford Coppola, who had to stall the release of it and the production of it because 9/11. But it's about the fall of Rome. And so is Gladiator 2, which just came out. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim. How you doing?
Very good. Thanks for your patience trying to get back through.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, I had a really quick item for you. So, one, I just subscribed to your Substack, which is great. So thanks for putting that out. I just wanted to mention that.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
And then the second thing I wanted to talk about is I wasn't sure if X or, formerly Twitter has like an algorithm that it's like pushing to my feed or whatever. But I just wanted to mention to you and see what you thought about this, that like the feed now has so much truth in it, like, vaccines and the moon landing and like all the, formerly what were conspiracy theories. I'm starting to, I just want to get your take on this. Like, what are the normies going to do as they continue to get inundated with, like, Barack Obama's, Big Mike, being a transgender and all that type of stuff? Like, I mean, what are these normies?
Okay.
Like, what
I know what you're saying.
Going to be the impact of these?
Okay, so Twitter was like a commons, a global commons. And then Musk comes over and he shifts it far right. And I think this is a deliberate agenda to cause a response against the free flow of conspiracy theory memeage, conspiracy theory ideas, right-wing ideology, especially culture war stuff. So I think it's designed to create outrage. Look how many big mouth liberal celebrities have just cut off their X accounts. And I think this is part of what I call Disease X. Disease X is the mind virus premise they use to lock down the internet, because they'll say these memes are causing violence in the real world, death in the real world. So I kind of think that what we're seeing here is engineered outrage. It's designed to antagonize the left. Just like how, it's just like any political, I guess any, like Facebook, for example, was looked at the same way. It was like too influential in the election. Zuckerberg was kind of hated by a lot of MAGAs for this reason. But X has taken that same role. And this is even emphasized in that Netflix movie, The Madness, where the billionaire was financing right-wing influencers in order to steer the election. So I think it's intentional.
So what about like Mitt Romney saying the Republican Party has now become the MAGA Party, and then the Republicans won the Senate, House, and President. Like how would what you're talking about actually come to fruition if MAGA is now in power?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to get a global commons rejection of American right wing. And so I think they're trying to generate a reaction that goes beyond just the American left, but in general. Like, for example, Musk is seen as possibly threatening space travel itself because he's a rich billionaire who's flooding outer space, low Earth orbit with his CubeSats. And they're also suggesting that he bought X and that he's done damage to the internet itself. He's destroyed polite discourse. He's opened up the floodgates to hate memes or whatever they're saying, hate speech, etc. But no, I think it's going to have a blowback. I think, and it's going to have some kind of action. My thinking is some right-wing domestic violent extremist terror attack could be used as the justification, but I think it's a build-up. So it looks like the right wing is they've saved free speech or something. It looks like they've been winning some victories, but I think there's going to be a blowback.
I think I just want to throw out a potential theory here is like if you really take a deep dive into the movie trilogy, the Matrix, how there's basically multiple realities. So basically, as I see it, there's sort of a normie reality that the vast majority of people still live in. And then they've created this alternative second reality, which is sort of like in the Matrix movie, there's like this dystopia. So if you pop out of the normie existence, you go into this dystopia existence. And I think what the powers that shouldn't be are doing is just creating additional realities that different people slot themselves into for, whatever they personally believe in. So if you're a normie, you're going to be in the normie reality. If you pop out of that, you're going to go into the Alex Jones controlled op, reality. And then we have this very fine filter that like we come out of, and we're like part of the 0.001% that are like in this next level reality. And so I'm just throwing out the idea that
I'm with you. I am with you. That's 100% what I think. Like, in other words, everyone's in the mainstream box, but if you question it, they have what I call Trutherville, where, okay, you don't question that, you don't believe this, so you get a little more information, and now you're still controlled, but you're in this other box. But if you lean left,
and it's more dystopian in nature. It's more negative.
It goes from
positive.
It goes from a dream world, blissful sleep, into a nightmare where everything's scary.
Yes.
And so the alternative is scarier. But then if you lean left, you got Woke Town. So I call it Woke Town, Trutherville, and Normieville. And outside of that, there's just a small percentage of us. But yeah, it's designed that way. I think you absolutely nailed it. That's their structure. So the system allows for free thinkers, but doesn't let them go too far.
Right. Agreed. But I just think that as part of this community, we should stay positive and hopeful. So like even when you're talking about this possible lockdown and, terrible, hoaxathon, that's going to happen, that's going to result in everybody losing their rights and stuff. I mean, I'm trying to stay positive and hopeful that as people are waking up, there's sort of a negotiated new reality, a third reality that people can get slotted into that, uplifts humanity and, throws Big Pharma under the bus and throws a bunch of these, bad guys under the bus permanently. So, I'm just saying there's some reason possibly to be hopeful. It's not all total.
Hey, I think so too. If you take all the red pills, every red pill contains like a little bit of fear. It's some fear-based narrative.
Right.
Like you think you're waking up, but you're actually moving to a nightmare. And so if anything is attached to a fear-based outcome, I say reject it till you have more information. Ultimately, skepticism should lead to peace of mind, since you're not in this place of uncertainty and fear. So no, I'm with you on that. And besides, I was even pointing out today how Daily Mail did a big story on how many people in New Jersey are claiming that they've been coming down with sickness because of drones. So to me, I think psychosomatics is real, and you're catching stuff through your TV.
Yes. Well, I think that, I mean, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I mean, I like one other area that I've researched a lot and that has that dichotomy is that if you believe in the round Earth, you're in Normieville. Then if you pop over into the single sun circling flat Earth, you're in that flat Earth controlled opposition world. And, like when I watch Jake the Asshole and Q and Fee on YouTube, like they really have like sort of a third possibility that it's some kind of like virtual reality or something. I know you're kind of against the simulation theory and everything, but and it starts to get into kind of a deep dive here, but like basically if you really analyze time and date.com and you look at like where the sun is actually located, and if you look at old military Navy training videos, like you'll see that they use a simulated sun. So like you can't just be out in the ocean and use a sextant. Like basically everybody is not looking at the same fireball in the sky, that you cannot triangulate where you're located on Earth by where the sun is located, and people can research, this in more depth on their own. But my point just being that it's some kind of, as weird as it sounds, like some kind of simulation of some sort. Like I don't know what what it is exactly, but
well, that's the key.
I'm just saying. So,
you said I don't know, and that's the key here, because the globe people know. The flat Earth controlled opposition, they know. The people I'm with are those who say, I don't know, I need more information. So, we're still being skeptical. You're still looking at the information. You haven't made a final judgment yet, but you haven't concluded on a model prematurely, which kills curiosity and the incentive to continue to explore. So, yeah, I don't know yet either, but I'm with you on that. It's got to be outside of their controlled dichotomy, their false dilemma.
Right. It's something that you never hear about. Like they definitely don't push like whatever the truth is. Like there's tons of material out there on the wrong paths. Anything that's on the right path, there's no information yet to find out for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm with you on that.
All right, cool.
But hey, I appreciate the call, and first time caller, right?
Yeah, first time caller. Yeah, I really like your. Basically, I agree with you on 99.9% of everything. So that's a good thing.
That's great. Well, I appreciate the call, and I always appreciate our first time callers. Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you, sir. Bye bye.
All right. Yeah, to me, what defines our group is that the mainstream and alternative are believers and followers. They follow their sources and they believe those sources. I would consider us to be seekers and informed disbelievers and or knowers. Infinite Plane Radio.
This is Harmon. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Harmon? Thank you for calling.
Do you remember me or not?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, you're
okay.
You've been a longtime supporter of the channel as well as a recurring caller.
Still am. I do the monthly still.
I couldn't do this without, so thank you.
Huh?
I couldn't do it without, so thank you.
Yeah, right. Anyway, I just had two quick things to point out. No reason for lights on drones. Okay, that's ridiculous. So that's got to be on purpose. If there is drones, no reason for lights. And then the second thing is, I was really suspect on when they were flying from South America to Antarctica. No one else was on the plane. You telling me if they didn't take the trip, that plane would have been empty?
Ooh,
why were they the only ones? And just the one before, they had 77 people, and the one coming in after them had 40-some people. So all of a sudden, just this one group is on this plane. That's what sounded really strange to me.
Well, okay, assuming, and this is just our starting point, let's assume that the globe model we've been given, irrespective of the ultimate shape of the world, but the globe model that we've been shown is some kind of a facade, a front, a false model, then it's reasonable to say that this event would likely be some kind of a reinforcement psyop. So in your opinion, is this fakeable in a stage, or do you think they went somewhere else?
No, I mean, if they could fake, they've done cities, they've done football stadiums. People thought that one experiment they did in, it was in Minnesota. So anyway, they took off and flew. They said they're going to be landing in Russia. They flew around. Oh yeah, it's from England. So they flew around a few times and did whatever they had to do. Recreated the whole scene that they were in Russia and Russian people, actors, everything. And it took about 5-6 hours. and they landed back in the exact same spot, and all the people on the plane thought they were in Russia, and the whole psyop went on that way.
Wow.
So yeah, it's possible.
Like Space Cadets, the 10-episode TV show Space Cadets, where they convinced 5
Yep,
people they were in low Earth
fakeable.
orbit. Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, anything's fakeable, you know. And I just kept wondering every time Jaron and Duffy, they were always showing them where the sun was to the right of that mountain. And always, all their live streams, the sun was always over there to that mountain, to the right of the mountain. I kept saying, I want to see it over here to the left when you guys are doing live stream. I want to see it over here. Never once did they show that the whole time. I watched almost everything. You know, well, why didn't they do that when they're live streaming? Is it they were asleep? I don't know.
Could this have been a NASA psyop? I mean, was anybody there unbiased? Jaron's already faked ISS transits, and then you got McToon, who has an entire YouTube channel dedicated to debating the flat Earth thing in a very controlled opposition type of way, where it's flat versus round. We don't talk about space fakery with special effects. So like none of these characters are completely neutral. So for a scientific experiment, you're supposed to have some level of neutrality with the participants and observers. So it's all very suspect to me. I'm highly skeptical.
I just couldn't. You know what I'm talking about when they were always doing their live stream where the sun was over there next to the mountain.
Yes, yes. And then who was there? We got Candace Owens as producer, and then we have a couple of people who are connected to like the Netflix documentary. So I can understand the skepticism. It's a small circle of people, and if this is a NASA psyop, I mean, look, they can fake Mars landings. Why couldn't they fake a trip to an Antarctic base? I mean, easy to do, right?
Yeah, I don't know how. I was kind of excited, and because I know you know Antonio. He's passed away now. I knew because he told me he knew you. Subarat.
Oh, yeah, Antonio Subarat. Yeah, we used to chat quite a bit, and
yeah, he told me about that.
In fact, I goaded him once. I told him to go to this comedy open mic in Manchester and just start telling everybody the Earth is flat. I found that video recently where he went on the stage until they booed him. It was like this: you have 2 minutes unless you get booed. And yeah, but anyway, funny guy.
He's really an introvert. He was really an introvert. That's why he stayed in that little apartment all the time. He wasn't all there, but he had a lot of good shots. What he did also, he made the statement on video in 2016 or 17 right there. He says, the sun does, he put his book out, The Sun, the Book of the Sun, and there was only 50 of those books. I got one of them. Then his second book, there was 200, and then his second book, his sister sent to me after he died. There was only 50 copies. I think I'm the only one right now that has a copy of his second book.
And what he say about the sun? Did he say there's a 24-hour sun on his flat Earth concept in Antarctica?
I'm going to go back and reread it. I haven't reread it. I keep saying I'm going to. I'm lazy about that. I'm going to go back and make sure before I say it. But I know he was saying that he said the bloody well does that the sun rises south of east and sets south of west. He says it bloody well does. You know how he talked.
Sure.
And so he was dead set against that. He was trying to tell me, of course, it got swept under the rug just like they did with what's that guy's name? Jake and all those other guys. But Antonio spoke out hard about it. You got to remember, Antonio was with Jaron and with Dave, all those guys at the first. And he fell out with them.
There was certainly this effort to maintain the idea that there's a single sun. The dome, all this stuff was kind of like an orthodoxy. And then it got backed up by all kinds of biblical stuff, which has no place in the conversation about geography, but it just reinforces what people want to believe. And so, like, yeah, I think the conversation, the whole topic was, I think, dragged down. And I used to call them conference earthers, because I'm like, hey, instead of going to Antarctica, you're forming conferences and you're just building an echo chamber. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, why would you want that? That's not teaching nobody anything. It's patting people on the back. I agree with you on that. But Antonio had one that he was doing a film with the two sons out of the Africa area, and his channel got taken down midstream right there. They blacked it out, and he had to start all over. And then the second one, I got a video I got back from him where it's two suns off in the beach. And the one sun, it's a sunrise, it's not sunset. Sunrise, you got one sun, then all of a sudden you see another sun starting to appear. And then I sent that to a few channels, and they put it up at first, and then they said, no, we're not going to do it. And So I said, you should have it there for the people to look at. And so they didn't do it. Have you ever seen that picture of him doing the two suns?
I think I remember coming across it. I'll have to look at it again, but
It was really neat. It comes up in the morning, and it's rising. The one sun is just perfect to be. Then all of a sudden, faintly off a ways away, the other one comes in. But you were thinking that the original one's going to stay, but the original one fades out and goes off to another direction, and the second one that showed up is the one that took over and came towards you.
Okay, interesting. I think I remember seeing that. And for anybody who's like listening to this, like and never thought about it, the idea of the Earth not being a ball doesn't mean a disk in space. It actually eradicates the concept of space as we know it. So this kind of changes the definition of what the stars are, what the sun is, how far they are, how big they are, and what's responsible for their movements, which could not then be described as orbits because there's no orbs, but rather would be described as some kind of a circuit. And so the mechanism by which they move would not be something described by physics as we know it. So we don't have all the answers, but the whole proposition...
Did you see Rory Cooper's new video?
Which one was that?
He just put it out this last week.
No. I'll have to look.
Yeah, he shows how, my perspective, but I can't remember the name of his new channel. I'm subscribed to it, but I can't remember the name of it. And he put it out, and he's just showing how if the Earth is on the tilt, and he shows you all the tilt, you know how technical he gets. And then that sun wouldn't be going around like that evenly. It'd be going up and down and up and down if it was on the tilt. And he was showing that. And that was a pretty good new video he has out.
I'll take a look at it. I'm just glad that this 24-hour thing came down, and instead of just this instant change where suddenly everything that we've ever been shown has been validated, I'm glad to see a lot of skepticism and people refusing to believe it without testing it and really going over it with a fine-tooth comb. But the truth is the truth, and it shouldn't be that hard.
I don't think they faked it. I don't. Do you? So far?
My question I'm asking now is it fakeable? Because we can say anything's fakeable, but at what scale? And so I've been doing some research.
Like awful big.
Yeah, there's someone, I've seen some people suggest it could be like the Mandalorian. It could be inside of a stage. It could even be the sky could have been pre-recorded somewhere else. It could be spliced. So we have to remember, if we're dealing with the moon landing fakers, we're dealing with the Mars rover fakers, we're dealing with the 9/11 fakers, is this outside of their capabilities that we know of? And I would say not necessarily, but...
Right. You know what I wanted them to do? I kept putting in the chat stuff. They said, no, that mountain looks only 2 miles away. Something doesn't look real about that mountain. It's close, whatever. But I wanted them to get in the truck and drive to that mountain. If it's only 10 miles at the most, go to that mountain. You guys are questioning how it looks. There's always says it's too crisp, it's too clear. It looks like it's only 2 miles away. You remember him saying that?
That was weird. Actually, Jaron said it looks like I'd reach out and touch the mountain, and it's 5 miles away. That glacier looks like it's right there.
It was 5 miles. It was 10 miles away.
10 miles away. And I'm like, wait,
like only 2.
When have you ever looked at a mountain 10 miles away and thought, hey, it looks like I could touch that? Like never.
Right.
You've never had that experience.
So that's why didn't they get in that awesome truck he was talking to, tell those guys, hey, drive me to this mountain and back. They probably got red stakes all around. Oh, it's too dangerous.
I thought it was Duper's delight. Like, I could imagine, this is just hypothetical, that he shows up on the set and he's like, wow, those are like 10 miles away, but it looks like I could touch it. Like, it almost sounded like Duper's delight. Like I actually have that video here, and he actually laughs. He laughs, and he says these mountains seem close enough to touch. I'll play this clip after our phone call, but I thought that was kind of a weird thing to say.
Yeah, cause he said it more than once. He would just, he was really flabbergasted about that. So why didn't they just drive to it? I would have drove to that mountain.
Yeah, and if you look at the behind the scenes on The Mandalorian, the people who are interacting with the LED screens, because they don't use green screens anymore. Now they use these LED sets. And a closed LED set has these backgrounds that it looks like you're staring into the background for miles, because you can't tell perfectly where the floor ends and the screen begins. And so you might be looking at a mountain that's 10 miles away, but yeah, it looks like you could touch it if you're there. So it fools the camera, but the people who are there know it's a set. And it kind of felt like he was pointing out it was a set. And a lot of people like Mazzell are saying there was no wind, not even a breeze.
Not even a touch of a breeze. And even if I went out to the site and looked at the weather, it's supposed to be blowing 6 miles an hour, and I didn't even see a riffle on anything. You know, it was just dead.
Hey, as Lean Dion says here, it looks like the sky edge in the Truman Show. Exactly. Like if he had walked out there or driven out there, they probably would have gone through a wall. Like it's like Looney Tunes. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like.
It's possible. And did he? I mean, they kept bringing it up, so that was what I mean. I would have. Hey, I'm not gonna stay in this little area. Let's go. Let's take your ski doos or something. Let's go. That's only 10 miles at the most. You're saying, so let's go see it.
Copacetic says they were probably in the Las Vegas sphere. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Well, hey, I appreciate the call, and follow up after you look through that book you mentioned on the sun. I'm curious as to see what other thinkers have come up with on the subject.
Okay, Nick.
All right, thanks again, Harmon. Appreciate your call. Okay, N.A. Literalist said, my mind told me the sun from that height didn't match the sun in my real world. Yeah, I'm saying that you're well within your rights to say, you're reasonable and you're rational if you say, I don't believe it because I need more time. I don't believe it because I need more information. You can always ask for more information. You're under no obligation to believe when they tell you to believe. So here is Jaren's bizarre reaction to the mountain and glacier, which they both seem, quote, close enough to touch.
And it's supposedly going to go behind this mountain here, if you can see it, which, I mean, this is crazy. I know you can't see it good on the screen. That mountain looks like it's right there. Looks like you can just touch it, but they say it's like a few miles away. They say that let me show you see if you can see the glacier. So you see the glacier, I can't tell what's behind me, behind that sign. So the glacier that's right behind the sign right there is 10 miles away. This looks like clear as can be right there. You can see it.
Okay, so it's funny because it's 10 miles away, but it looks so close. It reminds me of Musk. It must be real because it looks so fake. This mountain, miles away, but it looks like you could touch it. So I'm thinking here, these guys are inside of the Las Vegas sphere. There's something hoaxy about it. All right, let's see. Off the Wall 74 says, hey, Tim, have you heard of American Education FM? He has a good take on the Wisconsin school shooting? I have not. I'll look it up. Okay, I think I found a link. If you want to post links, I found him here on Podbeam. So I'm going to bookmark it, and I'll look into it. So thanks again for the suggestion. 2025, what's going to happen? Nukes, ISS falling, UFO invasion. What are the drones building up to? And then P. Trippa brought up this rhyming of the CEO shooting and the George Floyd event. Like there's some kind of a buildup happening. I think there's something with that, a buildup. And the connection between the Joker and his actions when he kills the rich and then his followers put on the masks and they riot was followed by 2020. Everyone puts on the masks and they riot. And here you have the CEO shooter who's now a folk hero, Robin Hood, this whole class warfare narrative, and then people dressing like him. Supposedly a lot of people buying Luigi hats, the green hats, which correlates with the Joker green hair. So I think there's some kind of a buildup here. And it seems like the left has little to lose since Trump has won. So are we being set up for another 2020? Another summer of peaceful protests. Salty Siren says, I went to Panama City Beach and it looked just like that snow. Well, they claimed that they had to leave because a storm was coming. And if they didn't leave at that time, they would have been stuck until after Christmas. And I'm like, well, it was awfully clear while they were there. Isabel Ann says, 2025 astrology is super fantastic. I can't wait. We are going to auto-hoax it real time. Yes. I think this is going to be interesting times. And for me, I'm looking forward to it. I have no trepidation about plot twists. And people are so gullible. Russell Brand, my jaw is on the floor. We're looking at a shimmering orb in the sky, and nobody has a clue as to what it is. I have a clue. Mick West has a clue. A lot of us have a clue about this. ABC7, no. How are they running with this stuff? And none of these people who fell for the drone thing can claim intellectual high ground over flat earthers. So let's keep that in mind too. Say what you will about the so-called flat earthers, and most flat earthers aren't flat earthers. They're skeptics about cosmology for good reasons. Say what you will about them, they're not the dupables who are enabling psyops. Think about that. I mean, are you a psyop enabler? I'm not. I'm a psyop disabler. I'm like the worst thing for the psyop entertainment complex. But every one of these gullible believers in this stuff are in fact enabling the big deceptions. So here's Mick West. He made it to CNN, and he says that he's identified everything with airplanes. Every single drone report has been either an airplane or Jupiter.
The date, the time, and the location, you can actually look up what was in the sky at that point and look at what direction they were looking in, and you can see, that it was actually just a plane.
We're on the boardwalk, the sun is set, and the sky has really come alive. You can see almost why folks are reporting so many drone sightings. Off in the distance over the Atlantic Ocean there, I can see several planes. I'm corroborating here with the same app that they use over in the command center. This is called ADS-B Exchange, showing within about a 20-mile view planes broadcasting their position live. There's an Atlas Air cargo flight that just left not too far away.
So it's ADS-B Exchange. You can find that site for yourself. And every one of these drone sightings, which have been misidentified as dangerous, as threatening, invaders from Iran, aliens, whatever, or magical orbs, no. All airplanes.
Details from lawmakers who attended a classified briefing on the drone sightings over New Jersey. This is what they said after.
There's a lot of rumor out there that this is radiation sniffing or chemical sniffing. This is not a federal government operation. We're very, very confident of that.
There's no imminent threat to public safety.
They haven't found anything that would indicate that there's foreign influence, foreign actors, or even little green men.
All right. Well, that's just going to be viewed as a cover-up by those who've already claimed to have experienced it. And now people are getting sick, psychosomatics. And check this out. This is a senator, a U.S. senator. He says, it is inconceivable that the government has no answers to the unidentified drones and has not taken any action. The fecklessness of this administration has been on display when the Chinese surveillance balloon was allowed to fly over the entire continental United States before being shot down. These should be viewed as threats to our nation and citizen in action. This is interesting here because what he's looking at is a TIE fighter. This is literally a Star Wars replica, a Star Wars drone replica, the spaceship from Star Wars. And a U.S. senator says we need to shoot these things down. This really does underscore everything we talk about when it comes to how we live in a mental simulation, which I call the world stage, and the mental map doesn't match the real thing. If your mental map is informed by the mass media, if that's your primary frame of reference. So this senator, for example, treats the screen as a sensory apparatus. I saw it on the screen, therefore it's real. It's not real, but it's real to so many people and it's treated as real that it's affecting the real world. And I would call these hyperstitions. Breaking news, crashed drone in Orange Beach retrieved from the water, taken to undisclosed location. And yeah, that is obviously a Star Wars prop. Unbelievable. Well, actually, I say that, but no, it's believable. What is not believable to the people today? And we've reached the point where anything is fakeable, and people are so credulous that there's no limit. I said this like last year. I said, if they were to present Godzilla coming out of the Pacific on TV, most people would respond as though it were real. Like most people. Like they could fake Godzilla at this point. How would you debunk it? If your standard of evidence is, I saw it on the screen, then how would you debunk it? So here's a short, I'll just share a link. The final experiment, I mentioned this before, this is my reference, The Mandalorian. So virtual sets are something to think about, not just with regard to this Antarctica thing, but in general. When they fake the moon bases, when they fake the Mars bases, how are they going to do it? With these immersive environments, the kind they use for The Mandalorian. So this is far beyond green screen. It's like rear screen projection, where the characters are interacting with what they're actually seeing it. So they're not exactly looking at a green screen and then imagining, but they're actually seeing these backgrounds. So this is from The Mandalorian using virtual sets.
Never be able to do it on a green screen. So you can really make it feel like the characters are embedded in their environments.
This green screen spill would have been an even bigger problem than usual for the Mandalorian, whose main character gets a shiny new suit of armor early on in the season. So realistic lighting from the LEDs makes the show look better, but virtual sets help with practical concerns too. Take this.
So the lighting reflects perfectly on the armor. I mean, everything about it is superior to the green screen, less post-production, but I've looked at videos where they have some of these setups in airplane hangars where the screens are so large, the backgrounds are so big that you could park a 737 on one of these sets. So what is not fakeable in terms of a total environment? Trump canceled his trip to New Jersey Golf Club after drone sightings, and they're all playing into it. So that's another thing as well. This has got to be some kind of a psyop. But virtual sets go a long way to explaining the future of fake space. Okay, let's see here. Oakley versus JLB. Let me just play this short clip.
Bad.
So John LeBon was having a conversation with Oakley about the 24-hour sun thing, and Oakley seems to deflect a lot of the debate content with just sheer anger and rage.
This out. This is JLB's filibustering when he's absolutely screwed and using poor logic. He can just chant through anybody pointing it out, and somehow he thinks he's going to win.
Give me a better word. Outer disc. Australia's in the
okay, I'll give you a better word.
Just give me a better word.
Dum-dum, thicko, moron. Those are better words. They describe you when using that fallacy.
Well, that's better than calling me an outer space believer, so at least we're getting somewhere here.
No, I'm calling you a complete moron.
Now, in his defense, JLB said he's not a space believer. So it's possible to not be a believer in space travel because there's no evidence for it, and yet not be a flat earther or reject the flat earth orthodoxies. Now, do you accept the 24-hour sun, therefore verifies the globe? I don't know. Like I said, I don't have enough information. If you do, good for you. Share it with us, please. But I don't have enough information to just unequivocally say, yes, I believe what they've said. I just don't have that info. Okay, thanks for the link here. I have a link to the video. I'll share it with everyone here. It looks like Jake Gibson talking about the final experiment. Looks like he's got himself a new dog. I met Rusty, his previous dog. So the final experiment exposed Jeranism and Witsit are shills. Streamed 8 hours ago. Okay, I'll check it out. Looks really interesting. Nothing to disagree with there. I want to say thanks to all the callers, especially first callers. We've had a lot of first-time callers, long-time listeners. Always good to hear from people. Joe Santos says, I know what's going to happen with the drones. It's a setup where every police station will ask for a drone in their budgets to go up and look at the random drones. It's a setup. Yeah, it's too widespread, and it's being too heavily promoted by the media who are playing on public ignorance. I think that's a huge part of it, but it's definitely a psyop. It's the psyop entertainment complex at work. It's largely taken the form of a panic, and they don't need to present real drones. That's the amazing thing. They don't need to provide real drones for people to think that we're being invaded by drones. I mean, that's remarkable. Makes me think they could pull off an alien invasion without showing us any. They probably could. Like in that TV series on Netflix, The Colony. On Colony, we're invaded by aliens. We're taken over, but we never actually see them. Our government capitulates, and now we're all slaves to the aliens, but we never actually get to see them. Yeah, that could happen. That could absolutely happen. Okay, this is Fepe Akbar, Allergic to Bullshit, featuring Lean Dion. I'll send the archives out later. Thanks again for all the comments and calls, and we'll continue this conversation tomorrow.
With your deception, keep it real, that's a profession. Like the whole world is pretending. Found the truth around the penguin. Get a gang on with a blessing. All the other gang are stressing. IPS on a nesting. Only real one's gonna get this. Fake ones only accept this. They can miss some message. Timbuktu got bodies, yeah. Find them in our records. Auto host and message. Squad are represented. Killing you with knowledge, yeah. The uppers getting dirty. Oh, you're so effective. Cause we're so effective. Let go of your worries, yeah, the whole thing is a sinner. We got it and we get it. Offering refreshment. Level up your conscience, yeah, it's honestly the essence. This wave is uncontainable. Facts are undebatable. You lanes are unrelatable. Give a fuck about saving you. We could keep on playing you. You just keep complaining too. Game is unescapable unless you're with the gang or no. Messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin, 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 fucking with them to your senses, figure in the media. We got that real shit fucking encyclopedia. We're bringing an end to this mass hysteria. They wanna know why it's so serious, cause you must be delirious. If you're still believing stuff, get a grip and show some evidence for your bold claims. We don't play no games, we stay relentless, exposing those events. Quick, the IPS are making an entrance. Busting doors down, cause now's the time for interventions that I mentioned. We're affecting so many men across the spectrum. We stand out from the crowd, we don't blend in. Steady gaining tremendous momentum. There's nothing close to resembling. Check the emblem, it's a penguin, not a gremlin. Just letting you know you're on an infinite plane, it's never bending. We strike like 10 pin, killing all fears and breaking the tension. Gotta know the Hawks army, digging deep in the trenches. Come and join in, be adventurous. Quit being so sensitive, forget the censorship. We ain't telling fibs. Messing with the penguin. We're messing with the penguin.